Well. Saturday, July 29th. It's noon Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. We all know what that means. It's time for our weekly Ask Me Anything live stream right here. Of course, FootballDiehards.com. That's the website. You can go there. Appreciate you joining us here on the YouTube channel every Saturday at this time. Also for Wednesdays for our On the Hot Seat live streams at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, all the YouTube-y stuff that YouTube loves so much, including the like button. Hit the like button. I'm going to dislike it just so everyone feels like they're not the first one in. If you don't want to like me, you don't have to like me. Hello, JSC. Hello, Jim. Mr. Scampers. A pleasure. Royal Slade. Dame Overboard. Brian Larkin. Hello, everybody. And I'm sure there's more of you out there, and there'll be more showing up. This is great seeing everybody. Questions, comments, suggestions, all your talking points, whatever you want to hear about, put it in the chat. I'll go through all that, and it'll be just me. It's an old school edition, right? Solo. It's because I'm too lazy to get a guest. No, I wanted to try out a solo. As we get closer to the season, probably all the Saturday live streams will be solo because the lineup questions get ferocious, and I want to be sure everyone is covered and have everyone covered. But this is just a little one-off. Let me know what you think. Do you like the guests? Do you like just Bob? It's okay if you don't like just Bob. I like having guests. It's a lot easier for me, but just wanted to try this out and kind of get my groove back on. It's great looking over the top of my monitor and seeing like on ESPN and NFL Network all kinds of training camp things going on. Most of the training camp stuff is great. Not all the training camp stuff is great. As many of you know, and I've heard about, and we saw on the Twitter, Joe Burrow suffered a bit of an injury, calf injury. They're saying it's going to be, multiple weeks, according to Zach Taylor. I don't know if you watched the video when it happened. I mean, everyone panics in the moment, and I think that's something we should talk about. How to leverage the emotions of your opponents, the overly emotional reactions, because everyone, you get that immediate, oh God, it's a thing. Well, you should probably wait to see what it is. I noticed right away that the couple things that struck me when that happened was that he had, I was watching video from earlier in the warm-ups, and noticeably he had a compression sleeve, and you can see it in the image here, to my side here, that he was wearing that sleeve, and so clearly this was a pre-existing condition, right? So he obviously aggravated it. I will say this, I am old and not a high-end athlete, but I have had a couple calf injuries, so I'm not comparing myself with Joe Burrow, but they tend to linger. They can be tricky. I spent the entire month of June dealing with one. So, I was able to work through it, but you have to be careful with them because they tend to get aggravated. So them shutting Burrow down is a good thing. Look, him getting hurt is not a good thing, right? But also he's missed the last two training camps, coming off the ACL in 21, having the appendectomy last year. So those seasons turned out reasonably well. So I think he'll be fine. Hello, Alex. Good to see you. See the questions coming in. I'll get to those and want to run through some things, including we'll talk about Dalvin Cook here in a minute. So we'll figure some of that out. I did want to bring up, and so we'll watch Joe Burrow. I'm expecting him to be fine. I heard Mike Garofalo on NFL Network talking this morning a little bit about it, and whether he's going to be ready week one. They're really not, they're keeping that secret. My guess is he will be ready week one. But if it's not week one, it'll be soon enough. If you're already invested in him, don't hit the panic button. If you see people in your best ball drafts or drafts you're in right now panicking, I think I was had Stacey Perez, who was here last week on the radio show last night. By the way, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You can catch Football Diehard 4 times a week. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Jay. Hi, John Bonneville. Thanks for coming. Hey, Gladiator Raider. So you can catch that 4 times a week, Monday, Thursday, Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern time. And Saturdays, including today with the great guest, Casey Joyner, the football scientist, at 5 p.m. That'll be our regular time throughout the month of August, and then we'll adjust that when the season hits. And you'll also be seeing me on the Sunday, the pregame shows again, it looks like. So good news there. So I do think, when you see people panic, we talked to Stacey Perez last night. She said she was in a draft and Burrow slipped down, out of that 4 spot to below. You've seen him go right after that top 3 in most drafts. Saw him fall down below Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. I think she said Trevor Lawrence as well. So that's a pretty precipitous fall for a guy that we've all thought was pretty much locked into number 4, just based on the fear that came from this immediate injury. And, whether it was the uncertainty, maybe people thought it was Achilles. I know I'm in 100 group chats and, oh, Achilles, that looks like an Achilles. I think, man, he had a sleeve on. I don't know. And so we'll see. I mean, we'll see how severe it is, but I'm going to take the calm approach to most of these injuries, right? I don't want to overreact. I want to react, but I don't want to overreact. And I think that should be the lane. Making decisions based on emotion, probably not always your best course of action. So, and I also wanted to talk real quickly about something before we get into news. I know there's all kinds of running back stuff, so I'm going to focus on some running back stuff here, including Dalvin Cook, etc. But I did see, the hype on my guy Darren Waller is going up there. Oh, by the way, a couple of newsy items first. Saquon Barkley signed, great news. Justin Herbert got his new deal, great news. Josh Jacobs still not signed, not great news. But the Darren Waller news has been off the charts, man. The hype is rolling. And I say that because I'm heavily invested. I know many of you are as well. But it just reminds me of the benefits of some guys you can get maybe a little later. Like, we're all after Travis Kielce. I'm in on that because he's essentially the Chiefs wide receiver 1. He gives you huge leverage over the field. Emo Cadlick put up a great short. If you go to the YouTube channel, check that out. About what Kielce gives you, just what kind of leverage over the field you get. Anyone who's played him knows why, and that's why he's a first-round draft pick in almost every draft you're in. Mark Andrews, I think, gives you that wide receiver 1 upside. I think Darren Waller is going to give it to you at a better price, more so than you're going to see like TJ Hawkinson, who's generally going as tight end 3. I think he's going to be. I mean, he's going to get a lot of targets, but in the Vikings offense throws enough. But do you think he has a path to be that team's wide receiver 1? I think Justin Jefferson would like a word with you if you do. Then you get down to Dallas Goedert. I think a great play, but also does he have that path to being the team's leading receiver on an offense with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith? I don't think so. I think Darren Waller does. Kyle Pitts, maybe he's got to meet that potential. I don't want to overdraft him, though. Early reports out of camp aren't great. Again, don't want to overreact to him. But the reporting on Waller is off the charts good, right? I mean, I talked to Chris Bisignano from the Giant Insider 2 weeks ago. He could not say enough good things about Darren Waller, including agreeing with me that this is the team's wide receiver 1 without a doubt. But just in general, talking about how you often see players listed as a certain size and talked about being a certain speed, and you see them in real life and you're thinking, well, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. He does not think that's an exaggeration with Darren Waller. He thinks it's all on point. He can't get enough of him. I'm drafting him. I think where you're drafting him right now is a great price for one of these tight end de facto wide receiver 1s. And there's some that are going later that I like. Everyone who's, Evan Ingram is never going to be his team's number 1, right? David Njoku is not. Pat Freiermuth is not. Greg Dulcich is not. Chico Conklin, with the arrival of DeAndre Hopkins, is not. Dalton Schultz might be. Talked to Aaron Wilson last night, covers the Texans, has for many years. He thinks Dalton Schultz will be the top targeted, the highest targeted receiver in Houston. Tyler Higbee's going to get 100 targets, not a wide receiver, not a tight end 1, though. I think I'm going down to the guy, and Royal Slade is out there, knows where I'm taking this. I think Mike Gesicki is the free square potential wide receiver 1. It's just who else is there, right? And if a team uses him, Mike Gesicki, as a receiver and not trying to make him really a tight end or a traditional tight end, I think there's something there. And why am I touting Mike Gesicki? It's all about the price, right? It's all about the price and the potential role. If he fails, I don't care. He's tight end 23 on Underdog right now. He's 185 ADP, right? Okay, I'll go ahead and take that chance. Sam Laporta going ahead of him. I think Sam Laporta is going to be great. Stacey Perez made a great argument for him as well. But he's going in the same range as guys like Tyler Conklin, Hayden Hurst, Trey McBride, Dawson Knox, Juwan Johnson. I don't think any of those guys give you that potential amount of the workload for that kind of price. And so that's kind of why I'm keen on him. I appreciate the questions coming in. I'm going to get to all of them. Wanted to say hello to some of the people who've just come in. Alex, appreciate you. Saber, 7488, appreciate you. Great to see everybody. Royal Slade agreeing with me totally on Mike Gesicki. And that's the thing. It's a free square. You guys know. You've been here any amount of time. If you've been here for a minute, Bob Harris loves free square plays, man. Why? Because they're free. Throw them away. Don't care if they don't pan out. I mean, what are your expectations for your 18th, 19th, 20th round picks in best ball? Well, I'd like them to have the opportunity to outperform that value. Well, I think Mike Guisiki gives you that in spades. So just wanted to bring that up because just spin that off the news on Waller, which I think is fantastic. Also want to talk about some unsolved mysteries at running back today. We'll get to the Dalvin Cook portion of this affair. Nico Collins, John, begs to disagree. I threw that into Aaron Wilson's face. I said, man, we're all drafting Nico Collins really late. He's not buying it. He thinks that receiving core is going to be a little more evenly split. He doesn't think Robert Woods going to be a factor, but he does think John Mechie will be, and he thinks Tank Dell will be. So we'll see. I'm with you. I've been drafting Nico Collins, assuming he is going to be he thinks he'll be the highest targeted wideout, but he thinks Dalton Schultz will be the highest targeted receiving asset. Good morning, Alan. Thanks for coming. So the part of please answer my 6 start questions, and I have no choice with injuries by, so I must start Jamal Agnew. I love those kind of questions. I'll get to all the comments here in a second. I wanted to talk about the Breece Hall and Javonte Williams situations right now. So we know the Jets are interested in Dalvin Cook. He is visiting there this weekend. Ezekiel Elliott, by the way, visiting the Patriots today. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But Breece Hall seems like it was a clean ACL tear for what that's worth, right? So he seems to think he's going to be ready week 1. I'm not as sure. And I have concerns about this is based on their interest in Dalvin Cook. Where Dalvin Cook arrives, he's going to crush the value of whoever it is. He's going to make Breece Hall, if he's off to that slow a start that they're bringing in Dalvin Cook. And by the way, they have all kinds of money, right? Because Aaron Rodgers just gave him a $30+ million in cap room over the next 2 years, so good for him. And the Packers said, "What about us?" But anyway, so Breece Hall to me is a huge concern. Still going way earlier than I feel comfortable drafting him. I want to look at the ADP right now. He is dropping for sure, and so early on in the best ball rooms, he was going closer to the top 10. Guess what? He's going at 11 now. Man, that's just too rich for my blood. Jahmyr Gibbs going right after him. Najee Harris going right after him. You all know I'm going for Jahmyr Gibbs. And by the way, if you go to my Twitter timeline, you'll see the video I retweeted Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach, talking to him. And there was another video floating around back there. Make no mistake, the Lions were going to take Jahmyr Gibbs at 6. They traded out of that pick. They were going to take Gibbs at 6. I like him almost, have no doubt. And if you watch that video, you'll see that as well. Which I think is very interesting. They're very high on him. I am also very high on him, in part because they're very high on him. But Breece Hall, running back 11, not knowing when he's going to come into play, and knowing their interest in Dalvin Cook, it's a concern for me. And let's go to Javonte Williams. The news is great. He doesn't start camp on the physically unable to perform list. This is exciting news, right? This is a bad injury for him. This was not like the clean tear. This was multiple ligaments, all the ligaments you can imagine, right? And so we had heard previously the Denver Broncos weren't interested in Dalvin Cook some time ago. They haven't shown interest in gaining any other backs. They added Samaje Perine. It seems like Javonte Williams is on track to be ready to go. It seems like. And yet here I am, remaining skeptical. Why am I skeptical? I want to bring up a tweet from Dr. Jesse Morse, which I think merits our attention here. 26 running backs. NFL running backs to tear their ACL since 2011. Only 2 of them have met or exceeded expectations. That's Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles. They were really good, by the way. Only 3 players, according to Dr. Morrison. By the way, go to @injury.drs on Twitter. Great guys, Jesse. Looking forward to seeing him at the Expo. Only 3 players have suffered injuries similar to what Williams did: the ACL, LCL, and PCL. Carson Wentz, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, all 3 returned but struggled in their first year back. We saw it with Dobbins and Edwards last year. Dobbins, in fact, had to have more work on his knee in the season. Edwards opened camp on PUP. So Dr. Morris nails this. The news is that Williams is not on the PUP list to start on camp. That's great news. And assuming he doesn't have any setbacks, it's possible he's ready for week 1. But this is the key here. Temper expectations, people. Don't be drafting him as your running back 1. If you're drafting these guys, Breece Hall or Javonte Williams at their current price. And Williams' price is far more appealing to me, given the circumstances, than Breece Hall. And Breece Hall was fantastic, right? I would love to have a piece of him. Javonte Williams is running back 27. Having him as my running back 3, I think I can live with that. And we'll talk about that whole range of running backs right there. But I do think it bears mentioning that both of these guys, we should be really cautious about running backs. We get really optimistic. We hear the glowing reports. We see Javonte Williams in practice. This is better than expected. Temper expectations. And I think the price on Williams is set appropriately. By the way, Alvin Kamara in that same range, running back 29, he is now appealing to me. I'm going to draft him now as running back 29. I think he's going to get maybe 6 games. Maybe he peels that to 4. Maybe he only gets 2. Could be the whole season. But I think at that price point, I'm a little better. And so I see some questions out here. JSC is if Dalvin Cook. Let's talk about Dalvin Cook a little bit. The latest reporting is there are like 5 teams interested in him. We know the Patriots have had some interest. They were the betting favorite there at one point. We know the Miami Dolphins have an offer on the table. I have talked to Alan Pupar from the SI.com who covers that team. And he thinks that they would love to have him, right? And Dalvin Cook has talked about going back there and playing for him. That's his home. That's where he comes from. He would love to play there. So we'll see. We'll see about that. The Jets, he's going to visit there this weekend and see if he vibes with them. There are a couple other teams. It's not clear who they are, but the hello, yard guys. The Cowboys still have a bit of a need. Could it be the Denver Broncos? Could it be the Buccaneers? Have been mentioned, earlier this offseason. We'll see about all those. Dalvin Cook, when he lands, and to the questions in the chat, and I saw a really good one in there. What is the split going to be if he goes to New York? Would it be a 50-50 split? I think it might be, right? I mean, I think that's not an unreasonable expectation, to say that if Dalvin Cook shows up somewhere, like he may not be the Dalvin Cook we drafted 4 years ago, but he's still a pretty good Dalvin Cook, right? And I think good enough that if he shows up in a good offense, playing with a good quarterback, maybe Aaron Rodgers, that this is not going to go well for that. And, a couple points here. Didn't they say Dobbins would be fine last year? They did say that. I mean, we hear a lot of glowing reports. This is what I want to caution you. So watch for Dalvin Cook's landing spot. It's, I think it would be crushing, like Breece Hall, running back 11. Dalvin Cook shows up there, that's totally going to hose people. So I'm not saying you have to avoid Breece Hall. I'm saying I would avoid the hell out of him at current price. I don't have any shares of him at his current price. I was drafting him a little bit earlier this year when he was a little bit cheaper. But, man, this is going to be tough, man. This is going to be a tough road if Dalvin Cook shows out there. By the way, say the same thing for Rachaad White, who we're investing a fairly reasonable price in, I think, right now. We'll talk about that whole range of running backs that's kind of going what they're calling the dead zone. It's hardly dead this year. I think it's a pretty good spot. And I know J.J. Zachariason has written about it a fair amount in recent days, and he's really keen on Rachaad White. But if Dalvin Cook shows up there, that's going to ruin values. There are other places, right, where backs could show up. So I keep drafting the hell out of James Conner. Thank you for that, sir. Keep drafting the hell out of James Conner. I'm drafting the hell out of James Conner because there's nobody else there. I talked to Johnny Venerable from PHNX podcast. He agrees totally with that, but he did bring up one specter that I haven't been working into the mix. But Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator there, previously with the Cleveland Browns. One Kareem Hunt is out there floating around and available. Maybe someone's going to sign him. That would be crushing. I have like a 41% ownership share on Best Ball 10s. Haven't checked on Underdog, but my Connor investment is insane. And it's based on the fact there's nothing else there. And Venable totally agrees with me. And then threw that whole Kareem Hunt thing into the mix and destroyed my night. Appreciate that, John. Anyway, so these are the things. And the thing about Dalvin Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, obviously a huge concern. Ezekiel Elliott there. Leonard Fournette has visited. There's talk about Dalvin Cook. Royal Slade, maybe you'll agree with me on this as the Patriots rep in the chat. But I feel like Elliott and Fournette would be less devastating. If Dalvin Cook lands there, this is not good news for Ramondre Stevenson. If the other two land there, it's not great news. But somebody's going to land there, right? You look at the rest of that depth chart, I don't think they have the pieces they need to make it through a season. So I'll be interested to see where this goes, what direction this goes with some of these running backs that are crazy. By the way, Johnny Venerable also told me that he thinks Kyler Murray who is aiming for week 1, could be ready by the end of September. We'll see. I remain skeptical. I don't know. And I also asked him, I said, what does this team think of Kyler Murray? Are they really all in on him? They gave him the big contract last year, but almost seemed like reluctant. We heard the clause that he couldn't play the video games, all that kind of nonsense, and that they subsequently, removed that clause. But still, it tells you something. In the reporting late last year or early this year by Chris Mortensen, who is clearly getting this from someone high up in the team, that they don't like his leadership, his attitude, his sidelines antics, and things like that. Man, it just doesn't sound good. And I asked him directly, do you think they'll be tanking? Are they looking to go after a Caleb Williams? And he doesn't think so. He thinks they love Kyler Murray. So we'll find out. We'll find out about that. But those 3 mystery backs, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, I think right now I'm more interested in Williams and Kamara. Kamara is growing on me a fair amount. Talked to Catherine Terrell from ESPN this past week, and she's pretty keen on Alvin Kamara. She thinks with this offense, with this quarterback being Derek Carr, that we could see a return of the more robust receiving numbers. I think 80 catch a season Alvin Kamara left the building when Drew Brees did. Drew Brees targeted running backs 28% of the time. I don't know if we're going to see that from Derek Carr, but we could see something closer to that, and something get a little more out of than we have in recent years. So that's kind of growing on me. So there we go. So I'll get to some comments here I wanted to get to anyway. So everyone likes them all. John Bonneville, love both, but you're more than enough for us. I am more than enough for almost everybody. I can see my fiance across the room nodding. Yes, I'm more than enough. So what are my thoughts on Dalvin Cook right now? I think I got them too. But I didn't get to this. What is the appropriate price point for Dalvin Cook? I think he's going right now, and I'll just bring up my underdog ADP. Where he's going is starting to feel pretty good to me. Dalvin Cook, running back 30, after Alvin Kamara, after Pacheco, after Javonte Williams, after White Connor, DeAndre Swift. Not going to get a lot of DeAndre Swift at running back 24. That's just me. I'm not getting a lot of David Montgomery at running back 23. That's just me. I don't think those are good spots for those guys. Like Miles Sanders at 20, J.K. Dobbins at 19. There's another mystery, people. I should have included him in the mystery bundle. He is not practicing. Is it an injury? Is it the contract? Is it a mix of both? John Harbaugh tells us it's complicated. When I hear the word complicated, I hear the words, no thanks. To me, when I'm drafting, I'm going to avoid that. Alexander Madison going at 18. Love him. Think it's a clear path to workload. But even there, Ben Gessling wrote yesterday or 2 days ago in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. By the way, if you're not using the FootballDiehards.com website, you should go there. I keep up with all this stuff in the news and views section of the site. I do headline news sections. We've got a rolling amount of news. And I try to cover some of these things of interest, like the Alexander Madison. And this article mentions that, while they believe Madison is the guy and they're going to use him as the guy, maybe he doesn't get all the snaps. Maybe there is some room for the Ty Chandlers, the Canadian Nwangwus, the Dwayne McBrides to get a little bit of run there. And I'm thinking, well, there's not that much. They throw the ball 65% of the time. That's not what I was after there. So still okay drafting him at 18, though. Aaron Jones at 17, Kenneth Walker at 16. I mean, I think, those are okay picks. But, man, you get down later, who gives you that kind of upside that you're getting a little later with these Williams, even if he's not ready to go to the start of the season, even now if Alvin Kamara misses some time? We're going to want to know where they're at the end of the season. And Dalvin Cook, right in that mix at 30, I think that's a fair price for him. I think that's a damn fair price. I like that price, as a matter of fact. So there you have that. Royal Slade likes the mix. Some guests and some just Bob. I think we're going to do the Wednesday on the hot seat. We'll always have a guest. That's going to be the plan. The Saturdays, we get into the season. It seems like the lineup questions come fast and furious. So we'll kind of figure it out. Maybe I get a guest for part of the time. Maybe I get a guest me for half the time. We'll work on that. Interested to hear your thoughts. Appreciate your feedback there. Again, if you like what you're seeing here, hit the like button. YouTube loves that. And go to the YouTube channel. Got tons of stuff up there. You can see all the past videos, all our shorts. We chop a lot of these into shorts if you're into that kind of consuming those little tidbits. And we're planning to up the video content as we head into the season. The August update, our draft guide will go live the 8th of August. Get in on that. That carries you into the Flash Update, the regular season premium service. Use the promo code DieHards right now to get a 15% discount on those products. And we appreciate your patronage, friends. Also, the magazines are there. Magazines are great this year. I mean, like I'm super critical of these things. It horrifies me to even look at them every year. This year it does not. I'm really happy. Great group of contributors, great bunch of articles. You can also use the promo code DieHards, get 15% off there as well. Order them up. They'll come in the mail. You get digital editions. You get all the updated information on the website. It's a fantastic deal. We appreciate you taking part in all of that. Alex Harbor, Mr. HOF. That's me, Bob Harris. Hope you're doing well, and I am. I am doing my first 16-team league redraft. Does your strategy change at all with 16-team leagues compared to 10 or 12 or not really? It does. 16-team leagues, I feel like you need to be a little more aggressive. Things just don't come around to you. Like, I don't play in a lot of 10s. I play in almost all 12s. Try to do a few 10s just to, get the feel for what the values are. And I think you can kind of do that in your head. But do the opposite direction of a 16, which is, 14 teams are tough. 14 teams start getting really, really tough. 16 teams get way tough. I just did one, I want to say a week or so ago. And, quarterbacks people get a little more angsty. People get way more angsty about the running backs. So yes, there is a difference, and you're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to be more aggressive about getting players. Obviously, the turnaround times are longer no matter where you're drafting. And so you might get shut out of runs. So it's better to start runs than to get shut out of runs, in my estimation. This is just another, this adds to my belief that, we all don't be a slave to ADP. Don't be adherent to ADP. We have a great tool on the Football Diehards website, the Stomp tool. It kind of allows you to adjust your rankings for players you really want, kind of moves them up above ADP. You have to go above ADP to get guys you want. And that changes ADP. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to personally change his ADP before this thing is over. I'm already seeing people when I'm drafting out there with you guys. I see what you're doing, Royal Slade. I see people jumping me on Jahmyr Gibbs. It irritates the hell out of me. But I'll be okay. But yes, I definitely be more assertive and more aggressive in that. Sabres 7488. Bye, Bob. What is your draft strategy when picking 12th in a 12-team league? Also, what are your thoughts on Calvin Ridley and Dynasty Superflex? I like drafting at the tail end. Here's why. Kind of goes along with what I've said. I feel like I want to be on either end. I like that, that long turnaround. I think when you have the first pick, it's obvious you get the superstar you want with that first pick overall. Along with the downsides of that, says Jonathan Taylor. Don't forget, it's not all a bed of roses there, but you get the person you want most, right? And coming back around, I feel like I still get some really good plays there, and I feel like I'm ahead of the draft. I like the 12 for this reason. It makes me more aggressive. I feel like I need to be more assertive. I need to go after guys I want. It helps me to not get caught up in the mindset of, I can't take this guy because his ADP is too low. Or his ADP isn't here yet. It doesn't match up. Don't care. ADP is not when you have to draft people. It's when people are getting drafted. It tells you when you can draft people, when you should draft the guys you want, when you need to reach on a player that you want on your roster. This is your team, man. You want to have the players you want on your team. So use the ADP as that, not as a something that you have to adhere to. It's not an instruction set. It's a piece of information that allows you to better land the players you want the best. So that's the key there, right? And I think being in that 12 spot forces my hand a little bit mentally. I feel like, man, that guy's not going to be here when I come around. I need to get him now. And I'm a little more willing to buck ADP. And look, we all like lists, and we all like to adhere to lists, and we all like to color inside the lines and do all those things. And we all want to be orderly, and that's all well and good, but it doesn't always get you the players you want. Get the players you want. To hell with the ADP. Not to hell with it. Pay attention to it. Use it to your advantage. And I think it forces my hand to do that, picking 12th. That's just my, the mentality I have. I'll sit there and I'll say, damn, I really want that guy. There's no way he's coming back to me. And when you frame it like that in your mind, it's a little easier for me to not ignore ADP, but to be ahead of ADP. It's okay. And so a Calvin Ridley question. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty keen on Calvin Ridley right now. And I think he's been going, not in Superflex, but in some of the drafts that I've been in. You're starting to see him creep into round 3. I would prefer him in round 4. I prefer him in round 5. Hell. But we're talking about Jaguars offense that finished 10th in the NFL in scoring last year, 23.8 points a game. An offense that had 232.9 passing yards a game, also 10th. 10th in total offense, 357.4 yards a game. They had Calvin Ridley. I've talked to people who have been on the practice field in recent weeks. Calvin Ridley looks like Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley thinks he looks like Calvin Ridley. What does Calvin Ridley look like? Last time we saw Calvin Ridley, he had, 90 catches, 1,374 yards, and 9 touchdowns in 2020 for the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, it's been a while. From what I'm hearing from the field, he looks exactly like that guy. Route running that sets him apart. All those things are great. I think this offense is ascendant. I think it's going to be better this year. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be better. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be part of the reason why. And if I'm keeping him over the long term, I feel pretty good about this. Dempsey and I were talking about this on this Football Diehard show on Sirius XM last night. We're both really keen on drafting the cheaper pieces in these kind of situations. That would mean Christian Kirk, right? Like, we'll let someone else pay more. I don't think the separation is that great in them that I'm not afraid to go get Ridley. If the separation grows and it seems like Ridley's starting to rise a little bit, I'll be fine drafting Kirk. I'm still fine drafting Evan Ingram as well. He was 3rd in targets last year, thinking he'll be 3rd in targets again this year. Not crazy. By the way, when we're talking running backs, don't be overlooking Tank Bigsby late. We've talked about this here before, but I will remind you, talked to Mike DeRocco a week ago Monday. He thinks the plan is that Tank Bigsby, we're going to see what we saw with James Robinson early last year, right, where James Robinson was getting the entire series. Now, they moved on from him, right? But I think we're going to see more Tank Bigsby, maybe based on what I'm hearing from people like Mike DeRocco, Mike Dempsey, that, Travis Etienne, he was fine, right? He's a super boom bust player from a fantasy perspective. We can go ahead and go with that. And I think, there's things to like. I don't want to just totally, ignore what Travis Etienne might be capable of. He was really good. He led the NFL with 440+ yards gains that tied him with Justin Fields and Derrick Henry. He got a great workload in the red zone. He had 40 touches, just 5 touchdowns. That could change, right? He had 4 of those in a 3-week span. So, over the course of the season, it wasn't great for Travis Etienne. He had 100 yards in 5 games. He also had less than 40 in 5 games. Totally boom and bust, right? So I'm worried about him. I think maybe they want to lighten his load a little bit. There's a lot of talk that he's been catching the ball well in practice, but expecting Tank Bigsby to get a full series, 2 full series, 3 full series a game, maybe that's the outside limit, and some goal line work makes me really interested in him at his current price. And Calvin Ridley, totally interested in. Mr. Scamper's lineup question shows that just got me juiced for the season. Me too. I'm kind of we're almost there, people. It's coming. It'll be here before we know it. So I'm excited for lineup questions as well. John Bonneville, I could barely move today from holding squats while tightening screws, putting together patio for furniture considered day to day. It is a thing. We see these athletes, out there. We see Joe Burrow, and he will get round the clock treatment, right? They will have electronic stimulation on him, working things. I'll tell you, my most recent calf injury, it started out at the top of my calf, had swelling in my knee. Swelling ended up all the way down to my leg, and I try to exercise every day, and every time you're doing something on it, you're prone to, it's just one of those muscles where, the way it's used in the body, it's tough. So he's got to be really careful with it. Expect the Bengals to be really careful with it. Answered this one earlier, JSC, if the Jets happen, do we think we could see a 50-50 split? I think early on it would be more than 50-50. And I don't think it's out of the question to think Dalvin Cook is not a complimentary piece, right? Generally speaking, this is going to be a 50-50 split at best, and we'll see how, Breece Hall works his way back into the mix. New England, yep, Deacon for a visit. Mr. Scampers, let me make sure, please answer my quick sit questions, and I love that. Should anyone be drafting both Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall? I could see that. The price, just for me, for starters, I think Breece Hall is a little too expensive given the uncertainty. If we gain more certainty here in the next week or two, or if Dalvin Cook doesn't show up, or they decline to sign him, maybe they make him an offer and it's not high enough for him, which seems to be, where Miami's at right now. Maybe that changes my perception of this, but right now I'm just not interested in Hall at that price. So wouldn't be drafting both of them. I am drafting some of Dalvin Cook right now based on that price, that 30 price, and the amount of interest in him. I think he'll come to grips with the pricing that he's getting, and we'll see if he ends up going somewhere. And again, the teams of interest that we know are interested, the Jets, the Patriots have expressed interest. The Miami Dolphins have an offer on the table. Mike McDaniel was talking about it, I think, again today, that they're still wide open to this. And this is one of those backfields where you're thinking, wow, I mean, there are best ball teams where I have 2 of the 3, right? And I don't think that's same with Chicago. I mean, I might have 2 of the 3 backs in their backfield in a couple different lineups because, the price is right. And so obviously it would crush the value in Miami of the pieces you already have. It wouldn't be great news for Devin Achane. It would be bad news for Mostert and Wilson. Could be either of those guys be moved? Possibly if they get Dalvin Cook. So we'll see. Nico Collins, the comment, I saw that earlier. Ever thought about having an NFL players on your show? Yes, and we have them on the radio show. You do get some interesting stuff sometimes. I mean, for the most part, they're very cautious and they don't want to tell you anything. It's just like having coaches on. I mean, I'm not averse to talking to them and getting their side of the situation and hearing what they're saying. And you do glean some great stuff from time to time. But I think for the most part, it's pretty generic. I like to have the people who cover the team on a daily basis where I, have a little understanding. Look, here's the thing about reporters and the thing about beat writers in particular. We talk to 2 of them almost every single night on the Football Diehards program. They're observing. They've become more opinionated over time because we as a fantasy community have pretty much forced them to be. I mean, we want that. We've asked them to be. When I first got into this business in the early 90s, beat writers were just out there telling you what was happening, what people were saying. They were, I don't want to say stenographers, but they were out there just passing information along. Now we're asking them, and the fantasy community has put that pressure on them, and they've become good at it. Some of them have become really good at it, by the way, of understanding what we want to know as fantasy audience. But remember this, all of us build narratives, right? Including the people who cover teams and players. And so that's why I sit here and I try to get as much, try to take I call it like you get like 5 different versions of the story, right? And they're all maybe slightly different and they're all based in the truth. And if you get all 5 of those versions, you can pull that thread of truth out that's in there, the real truth. But they all have agendas. Everybody does. I'm not saying beat writers are not objective or whatever, but there comes a point where just like fantasy analysts and us as fantasy players, we build a narrative. We tell ourselves a happy story about players, right? We tell ourselves, I talk myself into the belief that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be, I almost said a bad word, amazing, right? Based on what? Well, here are the reasons why. The draft capital invested. And I know, I want to say John Bonneville had a comment in here. Taking Gibbs above Bijan would have been a felony. Maybe so. But the Lions, seem to have their own board built. But I mean, their belief in him, their investment in him, their offensive line, the explosive nature of that offense. Yes, there are downsides there. There are concerns with David Montgomery being present. All those things are true, right? But we tell ourselves happy stories about the players we love. I spun you happy yarns about a bunch of tight ends earlier, right? I don't know that that's how it's going to happen, but I'm convincing myself that's going to how it's going to happen to establish my draft values. You can project the numbers, and that's great, and you can go solely by that. But in some of these cases, you have to tell yourself a bit of a happy story. Well, you'll see reporters who have they've been reporting on something in a positive way. The key to the success in all these things is to be ready to let go of your happy story, to realize it's not going the direction you thought. The faster you can do that, the faster you can get off your narrative, the better fantasy player you'll be, right? Like I sit here and I will tell you, man, Jahmyr Gibbs, this, Darren Waller, that, all those things. I need to be the first one to tell you it's not working too. And you need to be able to tell yourself that on the happy stories, the narratives you're giving yourself. To get to draft players, right? But this is how fantasy works. It's part of the fun of the game, right? It's how we sit here this time of year and we don't know what the hell is going to happen. We have no idea. I mean, we have an idea, and we have an idea of what desired outcomes are. But do we know how it's going to play out? No. Injuries, circumstances, opponents, everyone gets a vote in what's going to happen. Coaches that we have no control over. DeAndre Swift would tell you, a combination of things, injuries, coaches, lack of trust. And next thing you know, you're a Philadelphia Eagle, right? And Jahmyr Gibbs is in your place. And Bob Harris is telling you he's the best thing since sliced bread. That's how it works, right? So you've got to be ready to get off your narratives. So the first people to bail on their lousy narratives are the people who are jumping onto the next one. Look, you're going to tell yourself a happy story about the next guy, and hopefully you're going to be more correct about that one. But that's the joy of this game, right? Is we're all sitting here where we're doing something that is not easy to do. We're predicting the future. And to believe you can do that with 100% clarity and the great granularity necessary to discern between player A and player B with I think, look, man, there's a little bit of wiggle room here, and you have to recognize that and be ready to jump off it when the time comes. Did they say Dobbins would be fine last year? They did, and he wasn't. David N., keeper league choice between Kielce or Kupp. By the way, Cooper Kupp feels great back on the practice field. Matthew Stafford feels great on the practice field, not traded. Good news there. This is tough. Choice between Kielce or Kupp. Two players who last year, when healthy, led their position in points per game. I think that goes back beyond this year, right? So, look, this may be a little bit about your roster construction, where you at the rest of your receiving position. I mean, I think Kupp has a longer-term future just based on age. I think Matthew Stafford will be there for sure one more year. I think for as long as Kielce is playing, he will play with Patrick Mahomes. That's a plus in his column. Boy, this is David N. I don't want to sit here and say this is a you decision, but man, this is it's that close, right? Jonathan Taylor, I think I would choose. I would probably choose between Kielce and Kupp as well. I do think Taylor's in for a rebound season. All right, some positive news about Anthony Richardson, right? Today, by the way, Josh Downs says he flicks the wrist and the ball is 60 yards down the field. I'm keen on Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to lie, but I think it's more as a runner than a passer. We'll see. I'm probably leaning. Damn it! I want to say Kupp so bad, but I'm probably sticking with Kielce for the moment. I think it depends on what you're looking for. If it's a keeper league and you're only doing this year to year, then I'd probably go Kielce at this point. I have Kupp. Kielce's my number one tight end. Kupp is my number one wide receiver. This is a Sophie's choice situation here, totally. If it's just this year, I could make a strong argument for either one of those guys. Since I'll go in the order you listed them, Kielce over Kupp. In my rankings, I'm believing. Let me look at my overalls because they are that close. Honestly, it's crazy. I have Kupp over Kielce in my rankings. So there you have it. That's where I'm at. I'm going to stop there. That's incredibly difficult. Let's see what we got going here. Catch some other questions here. Oh, there's a lot of questions. I better catch up. Real estate lawyers in New Jersey, New York, Weber, Fabian and Associates, LLC. That's the last time I do that whole thing. It's odd that Hall does go in the second or third and Williams goes in the sixth, seventh. Truly is. All things being equal, if healthy, they would be virtually even. Totally agree with that. Best thing to do is stay away because no matter what, they're going to split workloads. 100% true. Wendy Early, how are you? Good to see you. I'm fine with Zeke there, says Royal Slade. I think I am too. I think Fournette or Zeke would be okay with me. Hello, Melissa Harris. Hi, thanks for coming. Appreciate you. Always see you out there on the Twitters. Golf Boy, Bob, should we draft any of Shakir, Sherfield, Hardy, or any of the above in best ball? They are not 3-square plays I've been dealing with a lot. I think for me in Shakir's case, Andy Isabella to the list of Bills, says Dave Overboard. That is correct. So should we draft any of them? I'm not. I just got my first share of Gabe Davis in a league where I have Josh Allen. Probably not gonna. I think I would rather take a swing at Dalton Kincaid. Is that, talking to people who cover the team on a daily basis, that kind of is the direction they're going. They're thinking of Dalton Kincaid more as a third receiver, a slot guy, than they are a tight end at this point. So that'd probably be the direction I go at that point. And granted, those guys are all going way later, right? So I get it. I'm just not counting on it, man. Zach Charbonnet, I have high hopes, says Royal Slade. I don't have those high hopes. So the Kenneth Walker Charbonnet is an interesting one. I've talked about it a little bit on the radio if you've listened. I feel like there's been a pattern with Seattle that I hope is repeated. Notice how I say that. I hope is repeated. Pete Carroll seems to be, he has someone he loves. He loves Chris Carson. He drafted Rashad Penny. Chris Carson remained the guy until he could not remain the guy when injury kept him from being the guy. Then Rashad Penny comes in. Rashad Penny was great. He was the guy. And then they went ahead and they drafted Kenneth Walker. Rashad Penny went into last season still as the guy, regardless of the capital invested in those pieces. Penny was a first rounder. Walker was not, but still pretty good draft capital for running back these days. And he had to wait until something happened to Penny. This year, we have Walker, and they add Charbonnet. And so, it's not 100% sure, but the history suggests that they're going to stick with the lead guy for now until they can. And so that's kind of the direction I'm going. I think they're all fine. I just hate, look, we all hate situations like that where we don't have clarity. By the way, great article in this year's Pro Forecast magazine by Marcus Grant about how we need to deal with backfields, how we need to look at them. There are different types, but they're all, assuming we're going to have a true feature back in that's a narrower band, an increasingly narrow band. And hell, the way they're paying running backs, maybe there won't be running backs pretty soon. They're all going to take a break. Web Singer for Fantasy Football, Charbonnet, who could you have high hopes when Walker is there? I agree with that. I think that's my point. Odds are 70-30 Walker. I think that's fair. I don't think that's incorrect. Robert, good to see you. Keeper Auction League, $200 budget. Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Khalil Herbert, Aiyuk all cost $10. I like that. Hawkinson 14, James Cook 19. That seems like a lot. Aaron Jones 28. No, it's all right. Lamb 43. Keep up to 2 or none. Probably would keep Lamb. I know he's expensive. I would probably keep Lamb. Well, and maybe Trevor Lawrence out of that bunch. I'd probably keep Lawrence for sure, and probably Lamb. Different skill set than Walker, and he's going very late. This is true for Charbonnet. No doubt. And I don't feel like it's bad insuring him. And I do think there will be some role there and maybe some weeks he'll be fine. It's all about the price. Andrea only does 12 teams now. I did 14 team and it was tough. And it was. I don't know what you're apologizing for, Royal Slave. You have nothing to apologize for, sir. So I do mostly 12 teams. I do get into some 14s. There's some industry drafts that I do that are 14 teams. And it's tougher, man. It's tougher. And 16 teams are downright insane, and I still play in them. Walker's not losing his job here, so we'll see. Alex Harbor, I stole Gibbs from Mike in the third of a best ball just because of the two guys 2 days ago. Thanks for advice on the 16 team. You're welcome. Thank you. Mark Spafford, is David Montgomery only the goal line back, or is he also the primary back while Gibbs is lining up over the field? I think that remains to be seen, Mark. My feeling is the better back's going to end up playing more. I think Emil, if you can put in the chat, I think you broke this down and you investigated what would happen if Jahmyr Gibbs got 55% of last year's production. Remember, last year's production was crazy high. Really good production because Jamal Williams was scoring all kinds of touchdowns. I believe 17 of them. That's a lot. And I believe that put him, were he to get that, that kind of production, he would be a top 10 running back, right? So, and you're not paying top 10 prices for him, although it's getting closer to that. So he's almost becoming a non-value. David Montgomery is a good back, probably a better back than Jamal Williams. So, if you're doing that comparative, but I think also Gibbs may be better back than DeAndre Swift. Hopefully he stays healthier. If you will go ahead and watch that video I posted on my Twitter timeline, you'll see what they think of him. They think a lot of him. Ridley is going mid-third of my recent FFPC drafts. I think that's where I'm seeing him. Jim Furry thinks that Ridley's going too high in most of his mocks. Seems to be the flavor of the month. I think he will be the flavor of a couple months. How long will we have to wait for Javonte Williams to get back to form? Is that next year? I think it'll be a process. As I mentioned at the top of the program, if you missed it, I put up a tweet by Dr. Jesse Morrison. He just reminded people to temper your expectations. Be careful with this, right? Don't go overboard. Seeing Ridley going higher than D-Hop. I mean, given the offenses involved, I don't think that's totally insane. What is going on with J.K. Dobbins? I mentioned that. Maybe you got in after that, Richard. It seems very odd to me that when John Harbaugh tells me it's complicated, that means it's more complicated than I want to deal with right now. I'm going to take a little wait and see approach on that and see where it's going. The price is a little high. I think he's running back 18 right now on Underdog, so that's a concern for me. I'm in a league where, Barry Meyer says, I'm in a league where QB pass TDs are worth just as much as any TD. That said, our QBs like Jimmy G, Tua, Tannehill, Love, etc. decent picks. Tua definitely is. if Tua is healthy for 17 games, do you think he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback with the weapons he has? I mean, I think he will be. If he stays healthy, right? That's a big if. All right. I think Ryan Tannehill, we have seen him, people. We have seen him be a top 10 fantasy quarterback during his time in Tennessee when he had better weapons. Guess what he has now? DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe Treylon Burks turns into a thing. Chigakonkwo turning into a thing. I don't know. I think, to me, Ryan Tannehill has suddenly become the outlier, the guy outside the quarterback 2 range, or who has been going outside the quarterback 2 range, that probably is growing on me. I am drafting Jordan Love. I've stated my case here 100 times. So everyone who's been here 100 times and heard it, I apologize in advance for that. Jordan Love, the Packers, we don't know what the Packers have. The Packers have a pretty good idea of what they have. And why do I say that? They let a 4-time MVP walk out the door. Granted, he was unhappy. They owed him a lot of money. The things weren't going well. But do you think if they didn't have a replacement for him, or if they didn't think they had a replacement for him, they would just let Aaron Rodgers dictate where he's going like he did? I don't think they would. So I think they have something. So I think he's a decent pick. I like Jordan Love as an upside play, and I like Jimmy G as maybe a semi-safe play. They didn't do a lot to shore up the depth at that position with Hoyer and O'Connell, Aiden O'Connell, the rookie there. I think they're betting on Jimmy G. So I'm willing to bet on Jimmy G as a late quarterback 2 or a quarterback 3 if I need him. I think that's fine. Jim, 10 seconds on your pick. Last round, don't like the draft board. Who's your hip pocket dart pick? Oh, I have a bunch of them. Tyquan Thornton. I just got a new one last night. Who was it? Tyquan Thornton's one I've been getting a lot of. Rashid Shaheed, if he's available that late. Tim Patrick's a guy that I draft a lot late in drafts. I need to do a whole show on free score plays. That's what I need to do, Jim, for sure. But there are a handful of guys. I think it's like it's mixed up a lot recently. If I just take a quick look at my underdog best ball ADP here, the running backs, there aren't a lot of them that I'm taking shots on like super late, right? But I mean, there are some. I want to say, who have I added to that list? Kareem Hunt, I've started adding to the list. He hasn't been going, but I think it's mostly been wide receivers that I'm after. Tim Packer's one. Curtis Samuel, man, people are sleeping too hard. Curtis Samuel outscored Deebo Samuel last year, people. Don't forget it. It is Tyquan Thornton. It's definitely one. I might actually start adding some shares of Devontae Parker. Tell me what I should do there, Royal Slade. Who was it that somebody just mentioned someone last night that I was adding to my list? I should have written it down. Oh, Terrace Marshall Jr. I talked to a beat writer the other night who thinks that this is the year that all the pieces are in place. So I think he's one I'm adding to my list there. So there are a handful of guys. I'm going to do a whole show on this, Jim, because I think it's a good show. I did one last year and it ended up being a ton of fun. Jim and Best Ball, Royal Slade likes Tim Patrick as well. I like that. How early is too early for Travis Kielce? Yes, JSC, you can make an argument for him as number 1 overall. If you believe he's going to continue to give you the same leverage over the field that he gave you last year, he's a player and a half in his position. In fantasy football, winning the weekly positional battle is part of this. Just like in daily, you need to have leverage over the field at a position. He gives you that at a position. So I think you can make an argument for first overall. I haven't done it a lot, but I'm not afraid to do it. Hello, Melissa Harris. How are you? Barry Meyer, keeper league. I have Folk, the kicker, but New England drafted another kicker. Yes, I would get another and play it safe. I think Royal Slade has this right. Ryland, it was a 4th-round pick, right? So, but they've tried to do this to Folk a couple times, right? So this was not his first rodeo, but I agree with Royal Slade there. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate you. I was at the Lions practice day and did not notice Montgomery that much. Gibbs did a lot. Cole Turner. That's one, Golf Boy. Thank you. I appreciate that. Needed that one. That was one I was trying to think of too. CEH 2, yes, to go with your TMJ. I agree with that one too. I have thrown a share at CEH, who is getting a lot of run in practice, a little run from the beat writers. Thank you for pitching those in, people. We're almost done here today. Get me some more questions in here. I'll get to them. But I think we're going to do a whole show on that. And I will be doing more of these solo shows as we get into the season. I'm going to have a guest next week. I've got Kelly Singh lined up from Trophy Smack, a fantastic friend. We're going to have, I think, Nate Markham on from Fantasy and Frames on Wednesday night. Tonight on the Football Diehards radio program on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You will find we're going to have, who is it? Oh, Casey Joyner, the football scientist. Great article in the Pro Forecast by Casey as well. Strength of schedule article where he really digs deep and analyzes. He's a super smart dude. Love his work. So go check out the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast magazine. It's the 34th edition, people. Emil Kadlik's been doing this a long time. So have I. And it's a great edition this year. Some really super good articles, of course, all the work by Gary Davenport that you've come to know and love, Matt Waldman's rookie piece as well, and tons of expert content, sleepers, busts, predictions, all those kind of things, and rankings. And yes, if the rankings are a snapshot in time, they're your baseline. Go to the website. We have updated rankings. The staff rankings matrix is a really good place to go and see all the latest. Royal Slade, Barrett, both can't do kickoffs anymore. I totally agree. I think they want it to be Ryland, but we'll see. If I'm betting right now, this is slightly different than San Francisco, where they turned Gould loose, Robbie Gould, and for their early draft pick, the Patriots are playing it safe. So we'll see. Oh, once again, probably Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon now in Baltimore, where we have all this uncertainty. Maybe he is the play there. Robert Farrington loves Zoltan. Gary does his annual Zoltan article, great predictions with a great sense of humor, super good stuff there. Go to footballdiehards.com, use the promo code diehards, get 15% off. I almost said 50 and I didn't mean that. 15% off. Football Diehards on the radio program on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You will hear us Monday at 10, Thursday at 10, Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturdays 5 to 7. I want to say what teams are we covering? I think I just got this information in my mail. We'll be doing Seahawks and Lions. Ooh, guess what I'm going to be asking about tonight? There will be Jahmyr Gibbs talk. Make no mistake about it. And also, we'll talk about Sam Laporta. A lot of people really high on him. Stacey Perez, who was on this program last week, cannot get enough of him. And I think Mike Dempsey was buying what she was selling last night. So got that going for us. So a lot of good information. We'll figure out what's going on with the with that backfield split if we can a little bit. And we'll be watching, man. We'll have news coming up throughout the week. We'll see what happens with Dalvin Cook. I don't know if he's in a hurry. By the way, all the running backs, in case you missed this, are getting together and they want to do something about not getting paid. And I mean, their argument is totally correct, right? They are doing the most productive things for the team and getting paid, not, they're getting punished in their compensation for all they do. I mean, it would be irritating as hell. I don't blame them for being angry. Also, I don't see it changing because there's an endless stream of running backs who are capable of stepping up into the breach and getting the job done. So thanks. Thank you, Jim. I like it without guests sometimes. I do too sometimes. And we'll probably do it more once we get into season when the questions are there. Thanks, Dame. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone coming. I know there's lots of content out there for you to choose from. I see many of you out there because I'm choosing some of that same content. Go out and listen to all the things you can, and hopefully you come back. And thank you, Andrea. Come back to Football Diehards every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, every Saturday at noon Eastern Time, and tons more. You can catch my show on demand on Sirius as well. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, just go and search Football Diehards, search my name, search Mike Dempsey's name. They're all available, and you can catch all the great interviews we do with all the beat writers and our super fantasy guests. And we get tons of good information, fast-paced, fun show. And looking forward to it and looking forward to seeing you on Sundays in the regular season there with my friend Jeff Mans. All right, everybody. That's it for today. Thanks so much for coming. And I'll see you here Wednesday night with the great Nate Martin.